नागपुर का ये आलो का संघाराम बुद्ध विहार है और यहाँ स्वागत हो रहा है ब्रिटिश मूल के थाई भिक्षु भदंत अजाहन जयासारो का। भदंत अजाहन जयासारो थाईलैंड की फॉरेस्ट मंक परंपरा से आते हैं और इस समय भारत प्रवास पर हैं। भदंत अजाहन जयासारो अपने मिलनसार स्वभाव के कारण उनकी मैत्री भावना के लिए समुचे बौद्ध जगत में जाने जाते हैं। आलो का संघाराम बुद्ध विहार में इस समय भारी मात्रा में उपासक उपासिकाएं और भिक्षु संघ एकत्रित हुआ है। उपासक उपासिकाएं भदंत अजाहन जयासारो का स्वागत करते हुए उनके कदमों में फूल बिछा रहे हैं। अजाहन जयासारो के स्वागत में ये सारे लोग पूर्णतः समर्पित हैं। संघाराम महाविहार, जिसे आलो का संघाराम महाविहार नागपुर के नाम से जानते हैं, यहाँ एक प्रशस्त और विस्तृत धम्मा हॉल का निर्माण किया गया है। इसी धम्मा हॉल के उद्घाटन के लिए इस समय भदंत अजाहन जयासारो यहाँ पहुंचे हैं और भदंत अजाहन जयासारो आलो का संघाराम महाविहार के धम्मा हॉल का उद्घाटन कर रहे हैं। आज आलो का संघाराम महाविहार में आलो का ट्रस्ट के कार्यालय का उद्घाटन भी भदंत अजाहन जयासारो ने किया। इस अवसर पर भदंत अजाहन जयासारो ने भारतीय उपासक उपासिकाओं को थाईलैंड के उपासक उपासिकाओं द्वारा भेजी गई भेंट यानी कि बुद्ध रूप यहाँ सबको भेंट दिया और अपने भिक्षु जीवन का सर्वश्रेष्ठ दान यानी धम्म देसना दी।
नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा। बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि संघं शरणं गच्छामि।
So now, on behalf of the monks of the Vihara and the devotees here, I request Bhante to give Dhamma Desana.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Venerable Sangha and all the Upasaka, Upasika here gathered here today, I am like to express my gratitude for this very warm welcome and very happy to see the faith of all of you contributing towards the construction of this new Dhamma hall.
Bhante, since there is a very short time, Upatika has informed that there will be no translation. Most of them understand English, so you can continue with.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. So this human life is a life of opportunity. Many people believe that Buddhism has a very pessimistic attitude to life. And they will say, oh, Buddhism teaches that life is suffering. But that is not, in fact, a correct translation. The Buddha said there is suffering. And there is suffering because of a cause. And that cause lies within us. So when the Buddha first gave this teaching in Sarnad, in the deer park, we can say it was a revolution in religion in this world. Because most religions before the Buddha, and indeed those that arose after the Buddha, teach us that as human beings we are weak and vulnerable, and that our lives are decided by forces that we cannot see or understand. And so the role of religion is to give people beliefs and ceremonies and rituals in order to placate, or in order to make sure that the divine forces will not make us suffer. But the Buddha said that there are no divine forces that decide your life for you. There is no fixed fate. There is no divine plan for everyone. The Buddha said that the human existence is a wonderful one, because this is the realm in which we can educate ourselves. So the Buddha spoke about many other different realms, heaven realms, hell realms. He told us about these things, but he did not want us to only do good because we are afraid of going to hell, or only do good in order to go to heaven. But the things that he saw and realized and thought we should know, he told us about them also. But he said the reason why this human life is special is because we can develop ourselves in the Dhamma. So there is some happiness and there is some suffering. Not so much happiness that we can forget ourselves for too long. Not so much suffering that we cannot find a way out of it. And the Buddha said that we become excellent and sublime beings through the practice of Dhamma. So if we were to summarize the teaching, we can present it a little bit like the hypothesis of the scientist. Because the teachings are all about human life, our real human life, not about something that we cannot know whether it is true or false. And so the Buddha says that we suffer unnecessarily because we don't understand ourselves. We don't understand our body, our life, especially we don't understand our own mind. And whenever there is lack of true understanding, and in the Buddhist language he called avijja, then there will be craving. Be craving for sensual pleasure and craving to become something, to be something, or the craving to get rid of things. So these kind of cravings are the desires that arise from ignorance of truth. But human beings have the capacity, have the potential to realize the truth. And avijja, or ignorance of the truth, can be removed by the practice of the Eightfold Path. Now, one thing that is, or point which is often misunderstood, is that with the completion of the Eightfold Path, or indeed before the full completion, the more we understand the true nature of things, the more our motivation changes. It changes from the ignorant desire, which we call tanha, and becomes the intelligent desire, which is called chanda, or dhammachanda. So it is not when you eliminate the unwholesome dhamma, or unwholesome desire, you have no desire. That's not what the Buddha is teaching. But when the unwholesome, the ignorant, the foolish desire, the desires which can never be satisfied, are abandoned, then the wholesome desire, the intelligent desire, this will take its place. So let's look at these two kinds of desire. First one, you can observe, you want the result of your action. So if you're working with craving as your motivation, what you want is you want the wage, you want the money, you want the status, you want something as a reward, but you don't want the work, you want the reward. This is the craving desire. But if you are working with love for your work and interest in your work and enthusiasm for your work and wanting to make your work as best you can, you will still get the money at the end of the week or the end of the month. You will get the status, all these things, but they become as byproducts of the real effort is to express the Dhamma in your daily life, in every aspect of your daily life, including your work. When your motivation is the ignorant desire, the mind is always agitated, and because the ignorant desire is interested in the result, not the action, it very easily leads to corruption and immorality. Because following the honest, true way, it can take a long time. And with the ignorant desire, you want everything quick, you want it right now. So ignorant desire leads to immorality and corruption very easily. But when you have the wise desire, the intelligent desire, the desire that comes from vijja, then there's your intention is to do your job as well as you can, to find joy in your responsibilities. And so you have no thought of taking advantage of others or of cheating anybody. So in the world of the lay Buddhist, it's not that you should think, I should have no desires. I have no desires, I'm true disciple of the Buddha. But the idea is to, the channel of desire, you take the desire away from the craving desire towards the chanda desire. So if you see someone who is suffering, who is in poverty, who has been abandoned, and you want to help them, it is clear, isn't it, that that's not craving. That's not the cause of suffering. It is a part of the path out of suffering. So Buddhist teachings have been misrepresented by various people, sometimes deliberately, out of malice, sometimes because people don't understand. But they say, oh, Buddhists, they're only interested in meditation or in their mind, and they're not interested in the society or the world. Say, yes, we want to create a better world, but we recognize as Buddhists that social change does not necessarily lead to a reduction or elimination of human suffering. Often it just changes the form of human suffering, because without the inner cultivation, inner education, then we just make the same mistakes again and again. So when someone has no power, they tend to be very idealistic, and then when they get power themselves, they become like the people that they used to hate and want to overthrow. And why is that? It's because people have no understanding of the way their mind works. So if you want to cultivate the mind, you have to be systematic. You have to have strategy. You have to use the Buddha's technology. It's not something that just happened by itself. So if you don't know how power works, like power is like a drug, and if you don't know how to protect yourself against the drug of power, whenever you have power, you will abuse power. So most people don't have political power or power in the society at large, but most people have some power in their families. And this is where we can also we can become addicted to that power that we have over the people around us. It's very easy to have high ideals and to believe in things that are very inspiring. What is much more difficult is to express those ideals in your daily life. So most people will have a good idea of what is right and wrong and appropriate and inappropriate, but when there is some strong pressure on them, or when there is a strong temptation, then they are unable to live in harmony with their ideals and their aspiration. This is why we need to cultivate the mind, to strengthen the mind. And one of the key factors is mindfulness. Mindfulness means that you know how to live in the present moment. But there are good ways and bad ways of living in the present moment. Most animals, they live in the present moment, but they're not enlightened, they're not very wise. So when we say as Buddhists, we live in the present moment, that doesn't mean no past, no future, only the present moment. That's not the meaning. But what we observe is that the past, and that might be this morning or yesterday or last year or when we were a child, or for some people they can remember past lives even. all of the past now? What is it right now in your direct experience that you can know right now? It's memory. And the future. So when you think of the future, maybe you think with some desire or some fear or some anxiety. But the future, what is the future right now, in the present moment? The future is thought and imagination. So when we say living in the present moment, what we mean is we are aware of memory as memory. We are aware of thought as thought. These are presently occurring phenomena. The past is a memory that arises and passes away right now. The future is a thought that arises and passes away right now. So dwelling in the present moment means dwelling with wisdom and knowing thought as thought and memory as memory. Now when we are in the present moment, we start to understand ourselves more clearly. So being in the present moment is not the goal of Buddhist meditation or practice. The present moment, we can say, is the classroom. If you want to learn about the Four Noble Truths, if you want to practice the Eightfold Path, you have to learn how to be in the classroom. And the classroom is not a place, it's the present moment. So this is why so many meditation techniques, we're always talking about be more in the present moment. Because when you're in the present moment, you can learn. And what makes us truly human beings, and what makes us, this human being, the birth as a human being, very special, is because we can learn. We can learn new things until the very last day of our life. Once the Buddha referred to the Arahant as the Aseka Pugala. Aseka Pugala, if we were to translate into everyday speech, we could say he's the graduate. He's graduated. He has no more work to do. No more need for the Buddhist education of Eightfold Path. But what this means is that everyone except for Arahant still is a learner. We are learners. And so in meditation, it's not that we want to develop samadhi and special state of consciousness and bliss and just escape from all of our miseries or our problems and go and live in this samadhi state. But we want to be able to develop the clarity and stability of mind that allows us to understand the nature of body and mind. So the analogy here is, in the old days, surgery was not very advanced for a long time. Why? Because it's very difficult to keep the patient still. Maybe with some alcohol or some, you could hold the person, but you cannot do very sophisticated medical procedures without anesthetic. So when the advances were made in the 19th century, whereby patients could be put to sleep for hours on end, surgery started to develop, because the surgery is dependent on the body being still. And similarly, the wisdom which is like a medical procedure, a surgical procedure. You're looking at the body and feelings and memories and perceptions and thoughts and emotions, sense consciousness. You are looking at these very clearly, very precisely. The mind has to be still of all the usual agitation and interest in things outside. So where does this stability come from, this clarity of mind? It comes from mindfulness. To illustrate the connection between sati or mindfulness and samadhi, my teacher often used to say it's like you turn on the tap of water. And you turn the tap a little bit and you get drip, drip, drip. So the drip is like mindfulness. And in between the drip is your mind is go off here and going off there. And then you bring it back very patiently. But if you keep practicing, it's like you turn the tap a little bit more. And then you get drip, 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 drip. Which means you are mindful for a longer period and you're distracted for less often and for shorter time. Eventually, this drip, drip, drip becomes a stream of water. And this stream of water is the analogy for samadhi. So, right effort leads to, which is samavayama, leads to right mindfulness, samasati, and samasati leads to samasamadhi. Samasamadhi is the basis for direct penetration of the nature of body and mind, and the elimination of avijja, or the fundamental lack of understanding of our existence. So this is work that everyone can do, everyone should do. And the Buddha said, I have no secret teaching. He said, there's not this very special, profound teaching only for the monks and nuns. He said, there's just one eightfold path. The same path for the monk and the nun and the layman and laywomen, and whether you're from India or from Thailand or from UK, same thing. Because human nature is the same. And human nature of people here in Nagpur today, and the nature of people in the middle country, in Bodh Gaya and Sarnath and these places, 2005, it's the same. We have greed, anger, delusion as the main defilements. It's simply the difference lies that this kind of things that make us greedy, kind of things that make us angry are maybe different, but the quality of greed and the quality of anger and the quality of delusion are the same. And this is why the Buddha's teachings are timeless. They're timeless because they are concerned with human nature and what we can do about our human nature. So if you were to look back in your own life to the past, is there a time in the past where you had some bad habit? Let's say smoking cigarettes, or you had some, you very easily lose your temper or something. But now, through the devotion to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and your practice, that defilement is weaker now, or maybe it's almost all gone. If that is the case, and I think everyone will see that to a certain extent there are some bad qualities, unwholesome qualities that we used to have in the past that are now not so strong, or maybe very weak. Now this is the proof that we can change, isn't it? So when we can observe this in ourselves, we think, well, if I can abandon this bad habit, why not that one? And why not that one? And why not all of them? And similarly, if we see in ourselves today, since we started to practice Buddhism more sincerely, that we have some good qualities now, that we could say 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that quality was not present in me. So we see this in ourselves clearly, and then we say, well, if I can develop this good quality, well, why not that one? And why not that one? And why not all good qualities? Because as human beings, the Buddha told us we have this potential for education. We have this potential to learn. And so rather than we meditate in order to get something as a result, what we are doing when we're meditating is we are learning how to learn. We are learning the skills of dealing with our heart, our mind, and learning how to abandon the unwholesome and develop the wholesome and purify our mind. Some people think that when you meditate, you have this some special technique. It's like now you have bypass. You can bypass all of the defilement and go straight to samadhi and be very peaceful. But in fact, the way that we find liberation from the defilement in our heart is through understanding them. You can see with any mental state, there are two sides to it. One side is content. So let's say you worry about something. So you worry about your son or your daughter and your parent, and you say, if this is this and that, and so worry has no end. So when we get caught up in worry, we're caught up in the content of the mental state. But there's the other side. And the other side is very simple. Other side is the process. And the process has three elements. It arises, is sustained for some time, and it passes away. So every single mental state is of the same nature. It arises and passes away. And so we don't have to fight all the thinking in our mind. Thinking not an enemy, but we switch the focus from the content to the process. Oh, it's arise and pass away. So when you are mindful in the present moment, maybe there's some thought that wants you to worry about your son or your daughter or something, and you are so sharp, your mindfulness is so good, you know, oh, this is worry thought. It's like someone wants to sell you something. They come and knock on your door. You don't have to abuse them. You don't have to fight with them. That's their job. They want to sell you something. That's their livelihood. And worry is the same. He just wants you to worry. He doesn't want anything else. So you say, no, thank you. Not today. I'm busy. I have something better to do than worry. So worry is just something that is an event in your mind. And you can welcome it and then just follow the whole story of worry. Or you can just see, oh, this is worry. It's something that arises and passes away. So as we practice more, the peace of mind, it's not you escape from all the things in life and go to this peaceful place, but it's more like your mind begins to feel like the sky. And all the thoughts and feelings are like the clouds and the aeroplane and the bird that they go through the sky. So you don't have to go somewhere else to experience peace. It's simply you shifting the focus. You see, even if there's an aeroplane or many aeroplanes or birds or clouds, the sky does not change because of a cloud. The sky does not change because of an aeroplane. The sky does not change because of birds. Sky is the sky. So this is what we're developing, the sky mind. You make your mind like the sky and allow things to arise and pass away. And you have to get involved with those things. So in a practice as Buddhists, the Buddha did not want us just to believe what he said. He wanted us to take his teaching and put them to the test. He said it's like you meet somebody and they say, take this is gold, it's for you. You wouldn't be so foolish, I think, as just to believe that person. You would bite it, you would weigh it, you would perform the chemical test. Yes, this really is gold. And if you did that, the Buddha would not say, you are being disrespectful. Why do I am the Buddha, I tell you this is gold. Why? No. The Buddha would say, very good, I want you to do this. Don't just believe me, even the Buddha. You bite it, you weigh it, you do the test you want to do. Because the Dhamma that I am teaching you is stand up to any kind of challenge. It can stand up to any kind of fair, impartial analysis. These are truths about human condition that anybody can learn and can benefit from. So I would like to offer you this short teaching this evening, and I hope that you could all understand. If there is someone whose English is not so good, then maybe those of you who have good English, you can explain to them. And this is very good also. You know, after you listen to Dhamma talk, have some discussion. Which were the points that yes, that was really meaningful to me. Did you get that? Maybe that person can't remember that one. And you tell them that one that you thought was very profound, and they tell you one, and it's very enjoyable, and it sticks in your mind much better if you have some discussion afterwards. So, yes, I would like to offer my very best wishes and blessings for all of you, and for this construction, this Dhamma hall, and of course my blessings and very best wishes to the Sangha.
रत्नदीप वो अपना मोमेंटो और जो देना है लेके आइए. Till then, if you have any questions, maybe you can ask Bhante. Only 2-3 questions will be entertained, not more than that.
Please don't be shy. You can ask anything.
Yeah, there's one. Please stand up.
Thank you. It's a very good question. Let me just talk about happiness generally. There are many sources of happiness in life, and the Buddha wanted us to study that. This is part of Buddhist practice. What does make you happy? It's not no one can tell you that. You can know for yourself. But what you can, I think one pointer to observe is that if a source of happiness has many conditions, it's a weak and unsatisfactory kind of happiness. For example, happiness of delicious food, for instance, because there are so many conditions that you cannot control over the delicious food, whether you get delicious food or not. Maybe you don't have enough money to buy delicious food. Or maybe you get COVID and you can't taste the delicious food. So, and when you get older, you lose the taste for food. So sensual pleasures give some form of happiness, but it's rather coarse and it doesn't really satisfy us. So this is the Buddha's hypothesis, and you have to look into this yourself and see whether you find it truly. And then we have the happiness that comes from goodness, beginning with generosity and giving. And I think this is very easy to prove, isn't it? You can see when you give, you share, you help somebody, you feel good immediately. And as I've been saying to many people, if you can also observe that the happiness you get from giving and sharing has a long life. Even after 1 year or 5 years, 10, 20 years, you remember some good thing that you did and you feel happy. So this is why this happiness that comes from goodness, we call it, it's a treasure in your heart, because it's with you all the time, whenever you think of it. You don't need ATM, you only have to think of it and you have your treasure right there, give you happiness. It never fades away. And nobody can steal it from you. Yeah. But also, and this is an important point, you can use your memory of the good things you've done as a meditation object in formal meditation. Because if you can keep your mind on that, the thought of the good thing that you did, and then the joy arises in your heart, and you can take that joy as an object of meditation, and you can become develop very good samadhi like that. So we can say this is a superior kind of happiness. The happiness of keeping precepts is something that many people overlook. But when you take the precepts, or you hear a monk talk about 5 precepts, and yes, number 1, I am pure, number 2, number 3, all 5. Yeah, it's a very happy feeling. And the Buddha said in family life, the foundation for happiness in family life, 1 is safety, 2nd is trust. So how can we create family and communities where everyone feels safe and everyone can trust each other? The answer, very simple, is 5 precepts. So 5 precepts are the means by which we can create the kind of healthy communities that we want to live in. And so Buddha said, when we keep 5 precepts, we give Mahadana. It's because you're giving to your family and the people around you the thing that every human being wants as a basis for their life. They want to feel safe. Yeah. So when you keep precept, and even if there's some pressure on you or some temptation, you can keep the precept. You start to feel good about yourself. You have a self-respect, and you feel like a friend to yourself. So this, and the agitation and guilt and bad feelings about things you've done, things you've said, they fall away. So this is a source of happiness. Samadhi is a more profound kind of happiness. So everyone, in every religion, in every culture, wise people say something similar: true happiness lies within. but how few people actually make the effort to prove whether or not that's true. But when you develop the samadhi through meditation, you experience for yourself this happiness. It's not come from getting something, but it's just from releasing all of the impure elements in your mind. So it's not you have to search for purity, only to let go of impurity. And then the purity of the heart manifests. And there is a deep sense of happiness. And one of the important value of this kind of happiness, it gives you a perspective. You can now compare with the happiness from the sensual pleasures of eyes, ears. Before, you don't have anything to compare it with. And maybe somebody says, yeah, it's not truly satisfying, I know, but, better than nothing. But now you have something which is better than that. And so keeping the precepts becomes very easy if you have that inner purity of heart and inner happiness. But ultimately, the happiness, the supreme happiness, comes when all the mental defilements have been eliminated, have been abandoned through vipassana and through wisdom. Then there is nothing that can shake your happiness. So right now, I'm happy giving Dhammadana. This is my happiness right now.
How to overcome delusion?
Delusion is a very broad term. And when we look at delusion, we're looking more at the specific expression of delusion. For instance, worry is a defilement rooted in moha and delusion, and agitation when the mind just won't stop, and doubt and just going over and over. So it's not like there's a specific practice for moha, but there are more specific practices for the defilements which are rooted in moha. So if you have, like we have lopa, dosa, moha, these are not three defilements as such. They are umbrella terms. It means there are many, many defilements that come under the umbrella of lopa or greed. Many defilements that come under the umbrella of dosa or anger. And many defilements that come under the umbrella of moha. So investigation and learning from your experience. Let's take the case of agitation. So mind like a monkey, running around all the time. So now we say, well, is it always the same intensity of agitation? Is it always agitated the same level, from first thing in the morning until late at night? Or is there some difference? Sometimes we feel very agitated, sometimes not so agitated. So it's like a scientist. We say, well, what is the variable? What makes it strong sometimes and weak other times? And these days, I think we have to accept that one of the main causes of agitation is our telephone and social media and the news. So there's not like a special meditation technique which will remove all agitation if you are still feeding the agitation in your daily life. So to deal with the defilement, you have to have harmony between how you are living in your daily life and your meditation practice. So sense restraint and taking care of your mind, because what comes into through your eyes, comes in through your ears, this is affecting your mind. So you need a filter. You know, just like when we have in the time with the COVID, it was very so everyone wear masks. You have a filter, but we need filter for our eyes and filter for our ears, because you're taking in so many things that stir up your mind and create worry and doubt and negative emotion. And why? Why would you do that? Why would you take these things in and that just make you unhappy? It's just a habit, you know. It's just a fashion and a habit. So we need to think, how much news do you need to read every day, or to watch every day? Do you need to need the news for an hour every day, or is half an hour enough, or is 10 minutes enough? So for everyone, you know, some people are living in their careers. They need to keep up with a lot of news. So then what's a reasonable amount for them is one level. But if you're not in that environment, then much less. But the Pali word that we have to reflect on is matanyuta. It means just the right amount. Not too much, not too little. So you should always think this with how you're dealing with the world around you and with media and with conversations, and how much is the right amount. Not too much, not too little. Moha is generally so much is about thinking. You know, it's just, and we are addicted to thinking. Thinking is a drug. It's the most common drug. And so many illnesses these days because of thinking. Whether it's anxiety disorder or depression disorder, so much on thinking. So in meditation, it's not we want to stop thinking. You know, it's like saying, oh, you meditate, no, you can't do that. But our mind is like a room, and it's just full with furniture, most of which you would never use. And a lot of it is rotting, it's got woodworm, or it's smelly, or it's, you know, it's unhygienic. So what you need to do, what furniture do I need in my room? And then take everything else out. So when in meditation, the skill we want to develop, when it's time to think, we can think. And we can think very, very well. But when it's not necessary to think, we don't need to think. Most people, it's just, I need to think something, have something go on in my mind all the time. You know, this is moha. Yeah. So the less clutter you have, the less junk you have in your mind, then the clearer you see it, and then the less the moha. Dhamma Vichaya, yeah. Thank you. So Dhamma Vichaya is the second of the Bojjhanga, the enlightenment factor, and it is conditioned by mindfulness. So one of my favorite Dhamma sayings is that when you have no mindfulness, you have very few choices. But when you have mindfulness, you have many choices. And what that means is that normally we just act according to habit and instinct. It's like we're on automatic pilot because there are so many things to see to, and it's just too much. But that means that we are constantly acting in ways which are not in harmony with our values or our aspiration, simply because we lack awareness, we lack the mindfulness. So when you have the mindfulness, you stop. It's like you wake up. I saw this morning, this school, this big poster. It said to all the children, "Dare to dream." So I think, no, I don't agree with that. My idea is dare to wake up. You're already dreaming, yeah. So dare to wake up. So when you wake up, then this question, is this appropriate or not appropriate? Is this the right time? Is the right place? Is this kusala? Is this akusala? Is this something to be pursued? Is this something to be endured? Is this something to be abandoned? All of these considerations are possible because of mindfulness. So Dhamma Vicaya is really just one name for panya, for wisdom. It's one particular level of wisdom. It's a discrimination, particularly understanding the meaning and the context, purpose, suitability, all these kinds of consideration of the present phenomena, and it's made possible by mindfulness. And when we have that kind of investigation and discrimination, then the result is viriya, is effort to protect and to abandon and to bring into the wholesome quality into the mind and to cultivate the ones that are already present.
So with this, the 3 questions are over. So we conclude this question and answer session.
Sorry,
now
I would like to ask the question from the young gentleman at the back. Yeah. Thank you. He doesn't want to.
he wants to know.
Yeah.
He wants to know how we can become a monk like you.
Yes. Okay. Well, in the Vinaya, the Buddha's rules for monks, then you must be 20 years old before you can become a monk. But the Buddha allowed the boy to become a novice, and the criteria for, or the level to become a novice, you must be old enough to chase crows away. So that's from the time of the Buddha. I think that right now is the time for you to be focused on your studies and your schoolwork, and at the same time to be studying the Buddha's teaching and gradually developing understanding, and also practicing chanting and meditation. And then when you get older, then you can see whether or not you still want to become a monk. And then at that time, and if your parents are okay, you can ask Bhante here to get in touch with me in Thailand. And maybe you can come and live with me in Thailand. We shall see. Otherwise, I can find a good monastery for you. Sorry, what did you want? You just have to be very, very careful what you say these days, because people are taking videos all the time, and if you're not careful, they'll use it to tease you when you get older. Yeah.
So I think we are getting late, and
Sorry.
we conclude.
Never mind, we can take one more. Yeah, go ahead. Well, there's not, I think, fixed purpose that you can know. But as I was mentioning, through the practice of the Eightfold Path, then your mind becomes clearer and you become more aware of your values and what's important to you and what's not important to you. And this is just a gradual evolution that comes about through the practice of Dhamma. So these days, I'm often talking to teenagers, and they feel, and so many times the young teenagers, they say, Ajahn, I don't have any passion. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't have any great passion. And I say, I'm thinking in my mind, you're only 13 years old, you're 14 years old, how many people will have a life passion at that age? And if they do, how many will have the same life passion when they're 10 years down the road? But so sometimes people do have this great passion, but it's the minority of people. It's not a standard. But what we can say is, if you find something which is good and wholesome, and you feel some interest in that thing, and you give yourself to that, commit yourself to that with sincerity and effort, then often the passion will come afterwards. It's not the passion must come first. The passion comes with the effort or after the effort. So in terms of what is your purpose in life, this comes through the effort, through a practice of generosity and precepts and meditation, and you get more and more in tune with your inner world. And then it will become obvious to you what is your purpose. So some people everyone has different gifts, different things that they can give, and different things that they can do. And so underlying principle is how can you create happiness for oneself and benefit for oneself, and at the same time be able to give happiness, share happiness with others, and do things which are of benefit to one's family and community. Excuse me. Okay,
so with this we conclude the question and answer session. Now we have a small book release program. This is a book written by Most Venerable Sadanand Mahathero, who was the Sanghanusasaka of the All India Bhikkhu Sangha. He wrote this autobiography, and just 1 week before he passed away. So we would like to take this opportunity that Bhante should release this book, autobiography.
Bhitiyo vivajjanto sambharokho vinasato mate mavadvantarayo sukhi dikha bhava abhyavadhana silisa nitjang udhapajahino chataro dhamma vadhanti ayuvanno sukhang Malang bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu samadevata